The Chicago skyline glittered like scattered diamonds against the midnight sky. 47 floors above Lake Shore Drive, the penthouse windows offered a view that most people would never see in their lifetime. The city stretched endlessly in every direction, a maze of lights and shadows that held secrets darker than the night itself. Inside the penthouse, everything spoke of wealth beyond imagination. Italian marble floors caught the ambient light from hidden fixtures. Custom furniture from designers whose names appeared in magazines sat arranged with precise intention. A crystal chandelier hung from the ceiling, its facets throwing tiny rainbows across the walls when the light hit just right. On a massive leather couch positioned near the windows, a man lay motionless. His white dress shirt was partially unbuttoned at the collar, revealing the edge of a dragon tattoo that crawled up from his chest toward his neck. The ink was traditional Korean style, intricate and bold, telling a story of power and pain that few would ever understand. His $40,000 Patek Philippe watch caught the city lights, its face gleaming against his wrist. His name was Woo Jin, and he was not sleeping. Through barely parted eyelids, he watched the hallway that led to the guest rooms. His breathing remained steady, deep, and rhythmic. To anyone watching, he appeared completely unconscious, vulnerable in a way that the man he truly was could never afford to be. This was a test, one he had conducted many times before. Woo Jin had built his empire on suspicion. Trust was a currency he could not afford to spend carelessly. In his world, the wrong decision about a person's character could cost him everything: his money, his power, his life. 3 weeks ago, his previous housekeeper had betrayed him. A woman named Mrs. Cho, who had worked for him for 8 years, who had prepared his meals and cleaned his home and smiled at him every morning. She had sold information to a rival organization called the Park Faction. That information had led to an ambush that killed 2 of his most loyal men. Woo Jin had handled Mrs. Cho accordingly. Her family believed she had moved back to Korea. That was the story anyway. Now he had a new housekeeper, a young black woman named Denise Carter, 29 years old, from the south side of Chicago. She came with a 7-year-old son named Malachi. Woo Jin's security team had advised strongly against hearing someone with a child. Too many complications, too many liabilities. But something about Denise had caught his attention during the interview. When he had asked her what she would do if she discovered something illegal in his home, she had looked him directly in the eyes without flinching. "I would mind my business, do my job, and protect my son," she had said. "That is all I care about. Everything else is above my pay grade." Honest, direct, desperate but not broken. He had hired her on the spot, but hearing someone and trusting them were 2 very different things. Tonight, Woo Jin had sent Denise on an errand across town. He had told her one of his associates needed documents delivered personally, that it was urgent, that she would be compensated generously for the late-night inconvenience. She had hesitated, not wanting to leave Malachi alone in a stranger's home, but the promise of extra money had won out. They needed every dollar they could get. The boy was supposed to be sleeping in the guest room. Woo Jin had made sure to leave certain items visible throughout the penthouse. A Rolex watch sat on the coffee table, its gold band catching the light. A stack of $100 bills rested openly on the side table, at least $10,000 in cash. The safe in the corner of the room was cracked open, its contents visible to anyone who looked. This was how Woo Jin tested people. He created opportunity and watched what they did with it. A person's true character revealed itself when they believed no one was watching. For 20 minutes, nothing happened. The penthouse was silent except for the soft hum of the climate control system and the distant sounds of the city far below. Then Woo Jin heard it, soft footsteps padding down the hallway, small feet moving carefully across the marble floor. His muscles tensed beneath his relaxed exterior, his senses sharpened. Through his barely open eyes, he saw a small figure emerge from the shadows. Malachi. The boy was wearing a dark, long-sleeved shirt that was too big for his small frame, probably a hand-me-down that Denise hoped he would grow into. His natural curly hair was slightly messy from lying in bed. His brown eyes were wide and curious as he surveyed the living room. Woo Jin watched and waited. The boy's gaze moved across the room, It passed over the Rolex on the coffee table. It passed over the stack of cash on the side table. It paused briefly on the cracked safe in the corner. Woo Jin's jaw tightened. Here it comes, he thought. The boy would reach for something. They always did. And then Woo Jin would know exactly what kind of people he had allowed into his home. But Malachi did not move toward the valuables. Instead, he walked quietly toward the couch where Woo Jin lay. The boy stood there for a moment, his head tilted to one side, studying the sleeping man with an expression that Woo Jin could not quite read. Then Malachi turned and walked away. Woo Jin felt a flicker of something. Disappointment, relief, he was not sure, but the test was not over. The boy might simply be going to get something. A minute later, Malachi returned. He was dragging something behind him, something heavy and awkward for his small frame. Woo Jin's eyes widened slightly as he recognized what it was. A blanket. A thick, knitted blanket with a gray and white pattern that Denise must have brought from their previous home. The boy struggled with its weight, pulling it across the floor with determination. Woo Jin's heart rate increased. What was the boy doing? Malachi reached the couch and stopped. With great care, he lifted the blanket and began draping it over Woo Jin's body. His small hands moved gently, spreading the fabric so that it covered Woo Jin from his shoulders down to his feet. The boy tucked the edges around Woo Jin's shoulders, patting them down to make sure the blanket would not slip. Woo Jin lay frozen, not because he was pretending anymore, but because he genuinely did not know how to respond to what was happening. And then Malachi leaned down. His face came close to Woo Jin's, and the boy whispered something that shattered every wall Woo Jin had spent a lifetime building. "You looked cold, mister. My daddy used to get cold when he fell asleep on the couch too. Mama said we always gotta take care of people, even when they do not ask." Woo Jin's throat tightened. His eyes burned behind his closed lids, something twisted in his chest, something painful and unfamiliar. It took him a moment to recognize the sensation. It was his heart, breaking and healing at the same time. This child, this innocent little boy, he had walked past a fortune in cash and jewelry without a second glance. He had seen a stranger sleeping on a couch, and his first thought had been to make sure that stranger was warm, not to take, not to steal, but to give. When was the last time anyone had given Woo Jin something without expecting anything in return? When was the last time anyone had shown him simple, unconditional kindness? He could not remember. Maybe it had never happened at all. Now, before we continue this story, I need you to do something real quick. If you are watching this right now and you are not subscribed, you are literally breaking my heart. I work so hard on these stories, spending hours making sure every detail is perfect, and all I ask is that you hit that subscribe button. It is free, and it helps me more than you know. While you are at it, drop a like on this video and leave a comment telling me what city you are watching from. Okay, now let us get back to this because it is about to get deep. Malachi straightened up, satisfied that his work was done. He looked at Woo Jin's face one more time, nodded to himself like a little professor approving of his own actions, and then padded quietly back toward the guest room. Woo Jin lay still for a long time after the boy left. The blanket was warm against his body, carrying a faint scent of fabric softener and something else. Something that smelled like home, like family, like everything Woo Jin had convinced himself he did not need. His mind raced through memories he had buried years ago. His mother's hands, soft and gentle, pulling a blanket over him when he was small. The sound of her voice singing Korean lullabies in their tiny apartment in Los Angeles. The warmth of being loved without conditions, without expectations. She had died when he was 9 years old. A fire set by enemies of his father had consumed their building and taken her with it. After that, warmth became something Woo Jin associated with pain rather than comfort. Until now. He sat up slowly, letting the blanket pool in his lap. He ran his fingers over the knitted pattern, feeling the texture of each stitch. Someone had made this blanket with care. Someone had poured time and love into its creation. And Malachi had shared it with a stranger simply because that stranger looked cold. Woo Jin did not know how long he sat there. When he finally rose and walked to his bedroom, the first light of dawn was beginning to color the eastern sky. He did not sleep that night. He could not stop thinking about the boy and the blanket and the words that had broken something open inside him. We always gotta take care of people, even when they do not ask. The next morning, Woo Jin emerged from his bedroom earlier than usual. He had showered and dressed in casual clothes, dark slacks, and a simple black sweater, nothing that announced his wealth or status. He moved through the penthouse silently, his bare feet making no sound on the marble floors. He found Malachi in the kitchen. The boy was sitting at the granite island, his legs swinging freely from the tall stool because his feet could not reach the floor. A bowl of cereal sat in front of him, colorful loops floating in milk. In his other hand, he held a worn comic book, its pages soft and creased from being read many times. Malachi looked up when he heard Woo Jin approach. There was no fear in his eyes, no nervousness, just the simple curiosity of a child encountering another person in his space. "Good morning, mister," Malachi said cheerfully. "Did you sleep okay? You fell asleep on the couch. That is not good for your back. My grandma always says that." Woo Jin stopped in the doorway. He was not accustomed to being addressed so casually. His men spoke to him with careful respect. Business associates measured every word. Even people who did not know his true identity sensed something about him that made them cautious. But this boy spoke to him like he was just another adult, like he was normal. "I slept fine," Woo Jin heard himself say. His voice came out softer than he intended. "That is good." Malachi nodded seriously, his expression thoughtful. "Mama made coffee. She said you like it black with no sugar because you are tough, but I think that is yucky. I put extra sugar in my cereal." Despite himself, Woo Jin felt the corner of his mouth twitch. It was not quite a smile, but it was close. "May I sit?" he asked, gesturing to the stool across from the boy. Malachi looked surprised by the question. "It is your house. You can sit anywhere you want." "True, but I am asking permission." The boy considered this for a moment, then grinned. "Okay, you can sit." Woo Jin sat. He could not remember the last time he had asked anyone for permission to do anything. It felt strange, and somehow right. "What are you reading?" he asked, nodding toward the comic book. Malachi held it up so Woo Jin could see the cover. Spider-Man in his classic red and blue suit, swinging between buildings. "Spider-Man, he is my favorite because he helps people even when nobody helps him back. That is what heroes do." "Is that what you want to be? A hero?" "I want to be a doctor," Malachi said matter-of-factly. "Doctors help people when they are sick, and they make a lot of money so I can buy Mama a nice house, but Spider-Man is still cool." Woo Jin studied the boy's face. There was no guile there, no hidden agenda, just pure, uncomplicated honesty. "Those are good goals," Woo Jin said quietly. "Do you have goals, mister?" The question caught him off guard. Did he have goals? He had spent the last 2 decades building an empire, accumulating power and wealth and influence. But those were not goals. Those were survival mechanisms. Those were the things he had done because he did not know any other way to exist. "I am still figuring that out," he admitted. Malachi nodded sagely, as if this was a perfectly acceptable answer. "That is okay. Mama says some grown-ups take longer to figure stuff out. You will get there." Before Woo Jin could respond, he heard footsteps approaching. He looked up to see Denise entering the kitchen and immediately noticed the way her body tensed when she saw her son sitting with her employer. Denise was a beautiful woman, though she did everything she could to downplay it. Her hair was pulled back in a practical bun. She wore simple clothes, modest and professional. But there was a quiet strength in her posture, a resilience that showed in her eyes. "Malachi," she said, her voice slightly too high. "Baby, I told you not to bother mister." "He is not bothering me," Woo Jin interrupted. His eyes never left the boy. "He was telling me about Spider-Man." Denise's mouth opened and then closed. She clearly did not know how to respond. In her experience, wealthy employers did not sit with the help's children and discuss comic books. Children were supposed to be invisible. "I am so sorry, sir," she said, falling back on formality. "It will not happen again. Malachi, go to your room." "Let him finish his breakfast," Woo Jin said. It was not a request. Denise hesitated. Her instincts were screaming at her to remove her son from this man's presence. She did not know exactly what Woo Jin did for a living, but she knew enough to be afraid. The building staff whispered about him. They called him the ghost of Lake Shore Drive because problems around him had a way of disappearing. But she could not disobey a direct order, not if she wanted to keep this job, and she needed this job desperately. "Yes, sir," she said quietly and turned to continue her duties. For the next 10 minutes, Woo Jin sat with Malachi while the boy finished his cereal and chattered about various topics. His school, which he missed because they had moved so many times. His favorite color, which was green like grass. His father, who had been a firefighter and a hero. "He died in a fire," Malachi said, his voice growing softer. "The building fell on him while he was saving people. Mama cried for a long time. I try not to make her sad anymore." Woo Jin felt something twist in his chest. This child, who had already experienced so much loss, was more concerned about his mother's feelings than his own grief. "Your father sounds like he was a brave man," Woo Jin said. "He was the bravest. Mama says I am going to be just like him when I grow up." I think she might be right. When Malachi finally hopped down from his stool and carried his bowl to the sink, Woo Jin remained seated. He stared at the empty space where the boy had been, lost in thoughts he could not quite articulate. Later that afternoon, Woo Jin met with his second-in-command in the penthouse study. T. Hyun was a serious man in his late 30s, with sharp features and sharper instincts. He had served the Beek Ho Syndicate for over a decade and had earned his position through a combination of loyalty and competence. "The Park faction is making moves," T. Hyun reported, standing at attention on the other side of Woo Jin's desk. "They know about the shipment coming through the Milwaukee port next week. Someone is feeding them information again." Woo Jin's jaw tightened. He had just dealt with one traitor. The idea that there might be another made his blood run cold. "I want everyone who knows about that shipment investigated," he said. "Everyone. That includes your household staff." The words hung in the air. Woo Jin thought of Denise, her careful professionalism and obvious desperation. He thought of Malachi, tucking a blanket around a sleeping stranger. "Investigate the mother," he said finally. "But I want proof before anyone makes a move. Concrete evidence, nothing circumstantial. Am I clear?" T. Hyun's eyebrows rose slightly. This was unusual. Woo Jin was known for acting swiftly and decisively when it came to potential threats. He did not typically wait for proof. "Of course," T. Hyun said. "Is there anything else?" "No, you may go." T. Hyun bowed slightly and left the study. But his mind was already working, turning over the implications of what he had just witnessed. His boss was changing. Something about the new housekeeper and her son was affecting him. Whether that was good or bad remained to be seen. Over the next 2 weeks, something shifted in the penthouse. The change was subtle at first, barely noticeable to anyone who was not paying close attention. But it was there, growing stronger every day. Malachi, unburdened by the fear and caution that governed his mother's behavior, treated Woo Jin like any other adult in his life. He said good morning every day. He asked questions about everything, from Woo Jin's tattoo to his fancy watch to why he never smiled. He showed Woo Jin his drawings. Crayon creations of houses and trees, and stick figures that he explained in elaborate detail. And Woo Jin, the man who commanded one of the most powerful criminal organizations in the Midwest, found himself looking forward to these interactions. It made no sense. He had no experience with children. He had never wanted anything to do with them. They were loud and messy and required constant attention. They were liabilities in his world, weaknesses that enemies could exploit. But Malachi was different. Or maybe Woo Jin was different when he was around Malachi. He could not tell anymore. One evening, Woo Jin came home late after a particularly brutal negotiation. The meeting had not gone as planned. A business associate had tried to renegotiate terms that had already been settled, and Woo Jin had been forced to remind him why that was a mistake. His knuckles were wrapped in bandages, hiding split skin. The blood on his shirt cuffs was not his own. He had changed jackets before coming home, but the memory of what he had done clung to him like a second skin. He expected the penthouse to be dark and quiet. Denise and Malachi should have been in their quarters by now, following the schedule he had established. Instead, he found the living room lights on, and Malachi sitting on the couch with a flashlight and a comic book. The boy looked up when Woo-jin entered. His face brightened in a way that made something ache behind Woo-jin's ribs. "Mr. Woo-jin, you are home. Are you okay? You look really tired." Woo-jin stood in the doorway, momentarily frozen. "I am fine. Why are you still awake? It is late." "I was waiting for you." The boy said it so simply, like it was the most natural thing in the world. "Mama said you might be hungry when you got home, so she left food in the oven, but I wanted to tell you myself." "You waited up to tell me about food." "And to make sure you got home safe. The city is dangerous at night. That is what Mama says. She worries about you." Woo-jin blinked. "Your mother worries about me." "She does not say it, but I can tell. She always looks at the door when it gets late, and she makes extra food even though you do not always eat it." Malachi shrugged. "I think she likes you, but do not tell her I said that. She will get embarrassed." A strange warmth spread through Woo-jin's chest. He walked over and sat down on the couch next to the boy, keeping a careful distance between them. "What are you reading tonight?" "Same comic, Spider-Man. I have read it like 100 times, but it is still good. Do you want me to tell you the story?" "Sure." For the next 20 minutes, Malachi narrated the entire plot of the comic book, complete with sound effects and dramatic pauses. His enthusiasm was infectious. By the end, Woo-jin found himself genuinely invested in whether Spider-Man would defeat the Green Goblin. "And then he saves the day," Malachi concluded triumphantly. "Because that is what heroes do. They save people even when it is hard. Even when no one thanks them. Especially then, that is when it matters most." Woo-jin looked at the boy, really looked at him. There was wisdom in those young eyes that had no business being there. Wisdom born from loss and hardship, and a mother who had taught him to find light in the darkness. "Thank you, Malachi." "For what?" "For waiting up, for telling me about Spider-Man." He paused. "For caring." Malachi grinned, revealing a gap where one of his baby teeth had recently fallen out. "That is what friends do, right?" Friends, the word hit Woo-jin like a physical blow. When was the last time he had had a friend? A real friend, not an ally or a subordinate or a business associate. He could not remember. "Right," he said quietly. "That is what friends do." Denise noticed the change in her employer, and it terrified her more than his coldness ever had. She had worked for powerful men before. She understood the rules of engagement. Stay invisible. Stay silent. Stay out of the way. Do your job, collect your paycheck, and do not ask questions. But Woo-jin was not following the script. He was paying attention to her son. He was engaging with him. He was treating him like a person rather than an inconvenience. Why? The question haunted her. Men like Woo-jin did not do anything without a reason. Every action had a purpose. Every kindness had a price. One night, after Malachi was asleep, Denise made a decision. She would start looking for another job immediately. They would leave as soon as she had something lined up. The risk of staying was too great. She opened her laptop, ready to update her resume, and found an envelope tucked beside it. Her name was written on the front in clean, precise handwriting. Inside was a check for $50,000 and a note. For Malachi's education fund, he mentioned wanting to be a doctor someday. Consider this an investment. WJ. Denise's hands shook as she stared at the check. $50,000, more money than she had ever seen in her life, enough to change everything for her and her son. But nothing was free. She had learned that lesson the hard way, growing up on the South Side, watching her mother work 3 jobs only to die of exhaustion at 42. The world did not give gifts. It gave transactions. What did Woo-jin want in return? The next morning, she confronted him in his study. She found him sitting behind his massive desk, reviewing documents on a tablet. He looked up when she entered, his expression unreadable. "I cannot accept this," she said, placing the envelope on his desk. "It is not negotiable." "Nothing is free. I learned that a long time ago. What do you want from us?" For a moment, something flickered across Woo Jin's face, something that looked almost like hurt, but it was gone so quickly that Denise wondered if she had imagined it. "I want nothing," he said. "Your son showed me kindness when he did not have to. I am returning the favor." "People like you do not do favors." "You are right." Woo Jin's voice hardened. "People like me do not, which should tell you something about how rare your son is. Take the money. Do not take it. I do not care. But do not ever accuse me of having ulterior motives toward a child again." Denise stared at him, searching for the lie, the manipulation. She could not find it. "I do not understand you," she said finally. "That makes two of us." She left the study shaking, the envelope still on his desk. She did not take the check. But she did not throw it away either. 3 days later, everything changed. Woo Jin was in downtown Chicago, attending a meeting with associates from the Milwaukee operation. The discussion was tense. Rival organizations were making aggressive moves, and the Beco syndicate needed to respond. Woo Jin was in the middle of outlining a strategy when his phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. It was his head of security. "Excuse me," he said to the room and stepped outside to take the call. "Sir, we have a situation at the penthouse. Someone tried to breach the perimeter. The threat has been neutralized, but there was an incident." Woo Jin's blood ran cold. "What kind of incident?" "The boy saw something. He was in the hallway when we intercepted the intruder." Woo Jin did not remember ending the call. He did not remember running to his car or breaking every traffic law between downtown and Lake Shore Drive. The drive that usually took 20 minutes took him 8. He burst into the penthouse to find controlled chaos. His security team was everywhere, checking windows and doors, speaking into radios. In the center of it all, sitting on the bathroom floor, was Malachi. The boy was curled into himself, his knees pulled to his chest, his small body shaking. Denise knelt beside him, her arms wrapped around him, her face streaked with tears. Woo Jin approached slowly, his heart pounding. "Malachi." The boy looked up. His eyes were wide and haunted, holding a look that Woo Jin recognized all too well. It was the look of a child who had seen the monster under the bed and realized it was real. "Are you hurt?" Woo Jin asked, kneeling down to the boy's level. Malachi shook his head slowly. "The bad man had a gun," he whispered. "He pointed it at Mama. The other men came and... You do not have to say it," Woo Jin said gently. "Why do bad people want to hurt you, Mr. Woo Jin?" The question hung in the air. Woo Jin had no answer. For the first time in his life, he had no calculated response, no strategic lie. He just stared at this child who had shown him what pure goodness looked like and felt something he thought he had killed years ago. Shame. Later, after a doctor had come and given Malachi something to help him sleep, Denise turned on Woo Jin with a fury he had never seen. They were standing in the living room. The same room where Malachi had covered him with a blanket just weeks ago. But now, the warmth of that memory was drowned by the horror of what had happened. "We are leaving," Denise said, her voice shaking with rage. "Tonight. I do not care about the job, the money, any of it. You have put my son in danger." "If you leave, you will be in more danger," Woo Jin said quietly. "The people who came tonight, they saw your faces. They know you live here. They will use you to get to me." "So what? We are prisoners now." "You are protected. There is a difference." "Is there?" Denise's eyes filled with tears. "My husband died trying to save people. I will not let my son die because some rich criminal has enemies." The word hit Woo Jin like a physical blow. Criminal? He was a criminal. He had known this about himself for years, but hearing it from her lips made it feel different. Uglier, more shameful. "I will keep him safe," he said. "Both of you, I swear on my life." "Your life," Denise laughed bitterly. "What is that worth?" "More than you know. I have not had a reason to protect it in years." He paused, his voice dropping. "Now I do." The confession hung in the air between them, raw and unguarded. Denise stared at him, trying to find the lie, the manipulation. She could not. The following days were tense. Woo Jin increased security around the penthouse. He relocated Denise and Malachi to a safer wing of the building, with multiple checkpoints between them and any potential threat. He assigned personal bodyguards to both of them. But he knew that security measures were not enough. To earn their trust, he would have to give them something he had never given anyone: the truth. One evening, after Malachi was asleep, Woo-jin asked Denise to join him in his study. She came reluctantly, her posture stiff with distrust. "I owe you an explanation," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "You deserve to know who I am." "I know who you are. You are a criminal. That is all I need to know." "That is what I do. It is not who I am." He paused. "Please let me explain." Denise hesitated, then sat down. She did not take her eyes off him. Woo-jin began to talk. He told her about his childhood in Koreatown, Lowe's Angels. His mother, a seamstress who worked 18-hour days to keep food on the table. His father, a low-level runner for a syndicate that no longer existed. He told her about the fire when he was 9 years old, set by rivals of his father as a message. "I was at school when it happened," he said. "By the time I got home, there was nothing left, just smoke and ashes and my mother's body." Denise's expression softened slightly, but she did not speak. He continued. His father, destroyed by guilt and grief, had descended into alcoholism. Within 2 years, he was dead too, his body pulled from the Pacific Ocean. Woo-jin was 11 years old and completely alone. "The organization my father had served took me in, not out of kindness, because I showed promise, because I was angry and smart and willing to do whatever it took to survive." He met her eyes. "They raised me to be a weapon, and I became the deadliest one they had ever created." "That is supposed to make me feel better," Denise asked. "No, it is supposed to help you understand. I know what it is like to lose everyone. I know what it is like to be a child surrounded by violence. I do not want that for Malachi. I do not want him to become what I became." "Then why do you live this life? Why not leave?" "Because I do not know any other way. I have tried. I have thought about walking away, but this world does not let you leave. Once you are in forever." He paused. "Until now." "What is different about now?" Woo-jin was silent for a long moment. "Your son," he looked at me and did not see a monster. He saw someone who was cold and needed a blanket, that simple act of kindness. It broke something open in me, something I thought was dead. Denise studied his face. She was looking for deception and finding none. "I am still afraid of you," she said finally. "I know, but I hope in time you will not be." The investigation into the penthouse attack produced results faster than Woo-jin had expected, and the findings made his blood run cold. The mole was not a stranger. It was Yi-sung, one of his most trusted lieutenants, a man who had served the Biko syndicate for 15 years, a man Woo-jin had treated like a brother. Yi-sung had been feeding information to the Park faction for months, motivated by promises of power. Once Woo-jin was eliminated, Yi-sung would take his place. That was the deal. But the betrayal went even deeper. The attack on the penthouse had not been random. It was a test. Yi-sung wanted to see how Woo-jin would react, who he would prioritize. When Woo-jin had rushed home to protect his housekeeper and her son, he had revealed his weakness. "They know about the woman and the boy," Tae-hyun reported during their emergency meeting. "They are planning to use them as leverage, kidnap them, hold them, force you to make mistakes." Woo-jin's hands clenched into fists. The dragon tattoo on his chest seemed to pulse with rage. "When?" "Soon, within the week, based on the intelligence we have gathered." "Then we move first." "Woo-jin," Tae-hyun hesitated. "You should consider sending them away, somewhere safe, somewhere you cannot be connected to." "No," the answer was immediate, instinctive. "They stay with me. I protect what is mine." Tae-hyun's eyebrows rose. "Yours." Woo-jin did not respond, but they both understood the implication of that word. That night, Denise overheard a conversation she was not meant to hear. She had been coming to deliver a message when she heard voices in the study. Woo-jin and Tae-hyun were discussing the situation. She heard names she did not recognize. She heard terms like elimination and disposal. She heard them discussing bodies and operations and a war that was coming. Her hand flew to her mouth as the full picture came into focus. This was not just a wealthy man with enemies. This was the head of a criminal empire. The deaths he had caused were not abstract. They were real, countless. She confronted him at midnight, her voice shaking with rage and fear. You killed people. You have ordered people killed. And you have been playing house with my son like you are some kind of monster, Wu Jin finished. I know what I am. Then how dare you? How dare you let him get attached to you? How dare you let me? She stopped, horrified by what she had almost admitted. Let you what, Denise? Nothing. We are leaving, tonight. I do not care about the danger. Wu Jin stepped closer. His presence was overwhelming but not threatening, not to her. If you leave, they will find you. They will use Malachi to break me, and then they will dispose of both of you. Is that what you want? I want my son to have a normal life. Normal? Wu Jin's laugh was bitter. There is no normal, not for people like us, not for anyone who has ever been touched by this world. The only choice is who you let protect you. Denise stared at him, tears streaming down her face. Why do you care? Why do you even care about us? Wu Jin reached out, hesitating before gently wiping a tear from her cheek. Because your son showed me I was still capable of feeling something. And you make me want to be worthy of that feeling. Yi Sung made his move on a Friday night. He coordinated attacks on 3 of Wu Jin's businesses simultaneously, while sending a team to the penthouse to capture Denise and Malachi. But Wu Jin was ready. He had relocated Denise and Malachi to a safe house in Naperville, a quiet suburb 30 miles west of Chicago. The house looked ordinary from the outside, a modest colonial in a neighborhood full of families. But inside, it was a fortress. Bulletproof windows, reinforced doors, security personnel disguised as landscapers and mail carriers. Wu Jin had tripled the protection. He had set traps for the traitors, and he had prepared himself for battle. The fight was brutal. Yi Sung's forces hit the businesses hard. Wu Jin's men were outnumbered at first, but they were better trained and more motivated. They fought for their leader. They fought for the organization that had given them purpose. They fought because they believed in Wu Jin. Wu Jin himself led the counterattack on the downtown location. He moved through the chaos like a force of nature, dispatching enemies with a ruthless efficiency that reminded everyone why he had risen to power. He was not just a businessman or a strategist. He was a warrior. By dawn, the tide had turned. Yi Sung's assault had been crushed. The Park faction was in disarray, and Yi Sung himself had been captured, dragged before Wu Jin like a dog. They faced each other in an empty warehouse on the outskirts of the city. Morning light filtered through dirty windows, casting long shadows across the concrete floor. You should have killed me when you had the chance, Yi Sung spat. Blood dripped from his mouth where someone had hit him. His hands were bound behind his back. Now the old ways will die with you. You have gone soft. Everyone sees it. That woman and her kid, they have made you weak. Wu Jin looked at the man he had once trusted. The man who had shared meals with him, fought beside him, celebrated victories with him. The man who had betrayed everything. You think caring about someone makes me weak? Wu Jin asked quietly. You are wrong. It gives me something I have not had in years. A reason to win. A reason to build something instead of just destroying. He leaned down, bringing his face close to Yi Sung's. But you are right about one thing. The old ways are dying, starting with you. Victory came at a price. Several of Wu Jin's loyal men had died in the attack. His businesses, though saved, were damaged. His reputation, though intact, was scarred. But none of that mattered as he drove to Naperville. The sun was setting as he pulled up to the safe house. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, a beautiful contrast to the ugliness of the night before. He sat in the car for a long moment, staring at the ordinary house that held the 2 people who had become his world. Malachi saw him through the window and came running. The boy burst through the front door and launched himself at Wu Jin, wrapping his small arms around his waist. You came back. Mama said you would, but I was scared. Are you okay? You look hurt. Wu Jin lifted the boy into his arms, holding him close. I am okay now. I am okay. Denise stood in the doorway, arms crossed, tears in her eyes. Her expression was complicated, a mixture of relief and fear and something else that Wu Jin could not quite identify. "Is it over?" she asked. "This part is, but I need to tell you both something." He set Malachi down and led them inside. They sat together in the modest living room, sunlight streaming through the windows. Wu Jin took a deep breath. "Malachi, do you remember when you covered me with that blanket, when you thought I was sleeping?" "Yeah, you looked cold." "I was not sleeping. I was pretending. I wanted to see what you would do." Malachi's face scrunched in confusion. "That is weird. Why?" "Because I did not trust anyone. I thought everyone wanted to hurt me or take from me, but you did not do either of those things. You just cared, for no reason. And that changed everything for me." Wu Jin looked up at Denise. Her eyes were wide, her lips parted. "I am not a good man," he continued. "I have done things that can never be forgiven, but your son showed me that goodness still exists, and you showed me that it is worth fighting for." He took another breath. This was the hardest part. "I am going to change, not overnight, not perfectly, but I am going to try. I am going to build something legitimate, something I can be proud of, something—" He paused, gathering courage. "Something you could be part of if you want." The silence stretched between them. Denise's face was unreadable. "If you ever put my son in danger again," she said slowly, "I will end you myself. I do not care how powerful you are." Wu Jin nodded solemnly. "I believe you. And I want everything. The truth always, no more secrets." "You will have it." "Then we will stay, but we do this together, as a family, a real one." For the first time in as long as he could remember, Wu Jin smiled. A real smile, one that reached his eyes. A family. 1 year later, the penthouse on Lake Shore Drive looked completely different. The cold, sterile luxury had been replaced with warmth. Family photos lined the walls, chronicling a year of healing and growth. Malachi's artwork was displayed proudly in the living room, colorful drawings pinned to the wall with care. The refrigerator was covered with magnets and report cards, and a calendar marked with soccer games and doctor appointments. The sound of laughter filled spaces that had once known only silence. Wu Jin had kept his promise. Over the past year, he had begun transitioning the Biko syndicate away from its criminal roots. The illegal operations were slowly being phased out, replaced by legitimate businesses, real estate development, technology investments, import companies that dealt in legal goods. It was slow, dangerous work. Old enemies did not forgive easily. Former allies questioned his decisions. Some tried to challenge his authority. All of them failed. But Wu Jin was not alone anymore. He had Ti Hyun, who had surprised everyone by embracing the transition with enthusiasm. He had his loyal men, who followed him because they believed in his vision. And he had Denise and Malachi, who reminded him every day why the difficult path was worth walking. On a warm September evening, Wu Jin and Denise stood on a rooftop overlooking Lake Michigan. The water stretched endlessly before them, reflecting the last light of the setting sun. Behind them, their closest friends and family waited in a small gathering area decorated with flowers and candles. Malachi stood between them, holding a small pillow with 2 rings resting on top. He was wearing a tiny suit that matched Wu Jin's, and his face was practically glowing with excitement. "Do you, Wu Jin, take Denise to be your wife?" the officiant asked. "To love and cherish, to protect and honor for as long as you both shall live." Wu Jin looked at the woman standing before him. The woman who had challenged him and feared him and somehow, against all odds, had come to love him. "I do," he said, "and I promise more than that. I promise to protect them both, to give them the life they deserve, to be the man they need me to be." Denise smiled through her tears. "You already are." "Do you, Denise, take Wu Jin to be your husband?" "I do, even though he is impossible and stubborn and way too dramatic," she laughed softly. "Especially then." Malachi bounced on his heels. "Can I give them the rings now?" Everyone laughed. The rings were exchanged, and when Wu Jin kissed his bride, the small crowd erupted in applause. Later that night, after the celebration had ended and the guests had gone home, Wu Jin found Malachi sitting by the floor-to-ceiling windows. The boy was staring at the city lights, his face thoughtful. "Cannot sleep?" Woojin asked, sitting down beside him. "I was thinking, remember when I put the blanket on you, back when I did not know you were awake?" "I remember. Mama says that changed everything, but I was just doing what she taught me. She says we always gotta take care of people." Woojin looked at the glittering cityscape, the same view he had stared at for years without really seeing. It looked different now, brighter, more hopeful. "Your mother is the smartest person I have ever met, and you are the bravest." "I am not brave. I was scared of those bad men." "Being scared and doing good anyway, that is the definition of brave." Woojin put his arm around the boy. "You saved me, Malachi. You do not even know it, but you saved my life." "Like Spider-Man." Woojin laughed softly. "Better than Spider-Man." Malachi grinned, leaning into the embrace. They sat together in comfortable silence, watching the city lights twinkle like earthbound stars. "Does this mean you are my dad now?" Malachi asked. "For real?" Woojin's heart clenched. He thought of his own father, lost to grief and the ocean. He thought of all the years he had spent convinced that family was a weakness to be exploited. He had been so wrong. "Yeah, buddy, for real, if you will have me." "Cool," Malachi yawned. "Can we get a dog?" "We can talk about it." "That means yes." Woojin chuckled, pulling the boy closer. "We will see." Outside, Chicago sparkled against the night sky. Inside, for the first time in his life, Woojin was truly home. They say that power corrupts and money destroys. They say that men like Woojin are beyond redemption, too far gone to ever find their way back to the light. But they never account for the unexpected. They never account for a child with a blanket and a heart full of unconditional kindness. Because sometimes, it only takes one small act of love to change everything. One moment of genuine care to crack through years of armor. One little boy who saw a cold stranger and chose warmth anyway. Woojin had tested Malachi that night, expecting to find greed or fear or indifference. He had created a trap designed to reveal the worst in people. Instead, he found his future. He found his family. He found his redemption. And it all started with a blanket and a whisper. "You looked cold, mister. My daddy used to get cold when he fell asleep on the couch too. Mama said we always gotta take care of people, even when they do not ask. That is what heroes do. They save people even when it is hard. Especially then. If you made it to the end of this story, you are officially part of this family now. Drop a comment telling me your favorite part. Was it the blanket scene? The confession? The wedding? I want to know what hit you the hardest. And if you have not subscribed yet, what are you even doing? Hit that button, share this video with someone who needs a good story, and I will see you in the next one. Peace.